right, it's 7 o'clock p.m. in Gardner, Kansas. I'm going to call the Gardner City Council meeting to order. Please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Action-packed meeting this evening. I'm going to run to the podium really quickly. I'm going to be doing a couple of proclamations. I'm going to call Jason Bruce up for two proclamations. The first one's for Earth Day and the second one's for Arbor Day. We have a long and distinguished tradition of environmental stewardship in this community. We've supported the Earth Day projects for at least 2 decades. And then we've also been, how many years now for Tree City USA? 18 years as Tree City USA for the National Arbor Day Foundation. So it's going to be a really good couple of weeks. We're going to be doing a cleanup, and we're also doing a tree planting. Is that correct?
Saturday.
Yes. So I will start with these proclamations. Whereas the first Earth Day was celebrated with the goal of inspiring environmental awareness and encouraging the conservation, protection, and appreciation of our nation's resources, and whereas Earth Day was created to allow us to reflect on the health of our planet and the importance of environmental stewardship, safeguarding our planet and its natural resources to ensure that we and future generations will have a clean, healthy world in which to live, work, and recreate. And whereas Earth Day is celebrated annually to celebrate the beauty of our planet, we commit to actions to promote a healthy environment and to maintain a peaceful, just, and sustainable world. And whereas Earth Day is an opportunity to renew America's commitment to preserving and protecting the state of our environment through community service and responsible stewardship. And whereas the theme for Earth Day 2021 is Restore Our Earth, which focuses on natural processes, emerging green technologies, and innovative thinking that can restore the world's ecosystems. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Steve Shute, Mayor of the City of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2021 as Earth Day in the City of Gardner, and urge all citizens to celebrate and commit to protect and enhance the long-term health of the natural environment and community. And just hold that for a second. I'll go straight into the Arbor Day one. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, Steve Shute, Mayor of the City of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day in the City of Gardner, and urge all citizens to celebrate and support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. There you are, sir. And thank you for the work that you and your staff put in to support both of these initiatives. And if you have anything to say about the cleanup?
Yeah, just that this Saturday is our Earth Day, Arbor Day celebration out at the Greenway. It's a free event from 10 to noon. We'll be cleaning up the creek bed there around the tree lines and everything, and then have some hot dogs and water for everyone to come out and join us. So hopefully the weather's good.
We're crossing our fingers. It looks like it's going to be. So looking forward to seeing a whole lot of people out there working on clean the greenway, and we can all contribute in our neck of the woods too. If we see litter, pick it up. If we see something out of place, put it back in place. And when you're out in our community, in our parks, leave only footprints and take only pictures, right?
Sounds good.
All right, thank you very much. All right, the last proclamation is Crime Victims' Rights Week. Whereas being the victim of a crime and navigating the criminal justice system can be a frightening and confusing experience, and whereas progress in improving the treatment of crime victims has been made through the efforts of thousands of victims and survivors who have turned their own experiences into a force for positive change, ensuring others can receive justice, meaningful assistance, and compassionate treatment before the law. And whereas through the dedicated work of advocates, lawmakers, and victim service providers, there is a growing array of services and resources, a growing array of services and resources available to victims of their loved ones. Whereas identifying, reaching, and serving all crime victims is essential, and whereas Crime Victims' Rights Week provides an opportunity to commit and ensure that accessible, appropriate, and trauma-informed services are offered to all crime victims, and whereas we owe gratitude and appreciation to community members, victim service providers, and criminal justice professionals who are committed to improving the response to all crime victims and survivors so that they may feel and find, I should say, assistance, support, and justice. And whereas the City of Gardner is hereby dedicated to supporting victims and survivors in the aftermath of crime, building resilience in our community, and bringing forth hope and healing to all victims and survivors. Now therefore be resolved that I, Steve Shue, Mayor of the City of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 18th through the 24th, 2021 as Crime Victims' Rights Week in the City of Gardner, Kansas. And Chief Belcher, I will ask you to come forward to accept the proclamation. Yes, thank you, absolutely. There you go.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. My biggest fear is that when I do that, I'm going to start sounding like Elmer Fudd. I came close a couple of times. All right. We'll move on to public hearings, which we have none of today. We do have public comments. Oh, I'm sorry. Number 4. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot about the CIP. Sorry, Matt. You know, it's not your fault. It's my fault, definitely. I completely skipped you. Come on up. We have the 2021 to 2025 Capital Improvement Program. Finance Director Wolf, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tonight's presentation is going to have kind of 4 different phases. First, I'll go over a CIP overview, then the 2021 through 2025 CIP, talk about some of the unfunded project requests, and then on to next steps. Just a reminder, when we say capital budget, it's referencing to the 2021 and 2022 budget. Capital Improvement Program is a 5-year look, and then Capital Improvement Element is a 20-year kind of big picture look about needs in the community. For CIP, there are 4 main components when we put it together. First, we have to identify needs. We look at our capital improvement element, our master plans, our utility assessments, staff's expertise, input from council and the public. Then when we identify those needs, we have to define a scope and a project to address those needs. We also need to determine costs. That's not just the initial upfront project costs, but we look at any ongoing operational costs and what it'll do to future budgets as well. Generally speaking, we have a lot more identified capital projects than we have funding to do those projects. So we ask our departments to prioritize their project requests. Please note that we use fund accounting, so if there's multiple water projects, we would ask that utilities department to prioritize those projects, but they aren't necessarily directly competing with street projects who have a different funding source. After we've identified projects and developed cost estimates, we have to come up with a funding plan for all the projects. Cash-funded projects have an immediate impact on the budget, while debt finance projects have an annual debt service that will affect future budgets. It's also important to take into account the useful life of a project for determining the best way to finance the project. This slide shows the 5-year CIP by department. About 51% is public works, but please note that this graph uses total project costs. Public Works Department receives grants to help offset costs of many other projects. One requirement for our CIP program is that it has to conform with the comprehensive plan. We look to stated goals in the comprehensive plan and trying to align our different projects with those goals. Under high quality and dependable public services and facilities, we have the terminal building and hangar, which currently have significant deficiencies with electrical, structural, fire hazards, insulation, access, and ADA compliance. We're pursuing KDOT funds to assist with this project. The line maintenance division has grown over the past 5 years. The current office space is limited. A new building near the energy center will be needed to house all staff, materials, and equipment. Installation of an anaerobic selector basin to achieve nutrient removal may be required by future operating permits. This will be a cost of approximately $5.85 million. It will only happen if it's mandated. I believe we're applying for that permit this year. We'll know probably in the fourth quarter if we're required to do those. Under maintain a safe and efficient transportation network, there's a need to signalize Moonlight and Madison. This is driven by traffic warrants. Left turns have been rated as having a poor service level. Moonlight Road Safe Routes to School project will address gaps in our existing sidewalk and trail network, provide pedestrian access to schools in the area. Waverly from 175th to Madison is currently a 2-lane section with no sidewalks, open ditches, that has flooding and safety issues. The project will address those concerns. The Main Street reconstruction project from Sycamore to Old 56 is scheduled for 2021. This project leverages over $3 million in KDOT funding, $735,000 in CARS funding, and $400,000 in private developer contributions. Pavement management review indicates that the roadway at 167th from Center to Moonlight is in need of base repairs and resurfacing. Center Street sidewalk improvements will address an existing sidewalk gap on the west side of Center Street where pedestrians are forced to walk in the grass. The project will provide a continuous sidewalk and include widening the existing sidewalk on Center Street Bridge. The bridge improvement was identified in the Main Street corridor study. Moonlight Road rehab from I-35 to Buffalo Trail. Improvements are needed for this rural roadway section before an interchange can be built at Moonlight. Center Street rehab, Main Street to 167th project involves a partial road reconstruction that's needed to help protect one of the city's main north and south arterials. Failure to reconstruct sections of the road will create a need for complete reconstruction. The proposed land acquisition for the airport is needed to protect the airport's runway protection zone. Then under balanced park system and supporting connectivity, Quail Meadows Trail and Park projects will add a park off 167th Street and connect it into the city's trail system. The trail resurfacing project will make improvements to South Center Street, bicycle and pedestrian pathway. We're planning to use funds from the infrastructure special sales tax for that project, but we're also pursuing grants to help fund it. Under supporting growth, we have the 2 recent Hilltop Ridge benefit districts. These are providing infrastructure to the new development. The cost for those improvements will be paid by special assessments on the district. Part of the city's development agreement with Grata, the city is responsible for extending utility services to the Grata property. Please note that we are in the process of updating the sanitary sewer and electric infrastructure project request forms. They weren't in the packet, but we're going to add them before this CIP packet goes to the Planning Commission, and we'll publish that online. The Nike lift station and force main improvements will serve the growth area between South Gardner Road, South Moonlight Road, 191st Street, and West 199th Street. The Gardner Road Bridge will cost approximately $17.2 million. The project will leverage over $12.7 million in grant funding. The new intake structure for Hillsdale Lake and construction of new water transmission line will expand water capacity and help support growth. We need to start looking to acquire land for a future substation 4 that will help prepare for growth on the other side of the interstate. I-35 and US 56 interchange improvements include traffic signals at the ramp intersections and a right turn lane for northbound traffic and extension to the left turn lane for westbound traffic. White Drive gravity main replacement project will replace several pipe runs that are over 50 years old and add capacity to allow for new development. We had 3 projects that were requested that we categorized as unfunded. Gardner Lake Spillway, Gardner Road from 199th to I-35, and then street improvements for destination downtown. The city's ability to move forward with these projects is dependent on the level of grant funding available. We're actively pursuing grants for those and trying to establish what the local match will be. Then we have that information, we'll come back to council with more information. The 2 big milestones coming up for the CIP is on May 25th. We present the CIP to the Planning Commission. We're required to do this every year. The purpose of this is to have the Planning Commission review the CIP, then make a finding if it's in conformance with the comprehensive plan. And then the final step in this entire CIP process is on August 2nd, where we're asking council to adopt the revised 2021 budget, or 2021 and 2022 budget. And at that time, the 2021 and 2025 CIP will be part of the budget document. Please note that it gives about 3 to 4 months for the public and council to give input into the CIP. And there's could be multiple budget meetings between that time where people can give feedback.
Thank you very much, Matt. Any questions for Matt or staff on any of these items on the CIP? Okay. So is there going to be some public input opportunities for some of these projects?
We do have budget meetings planned and also a public hearing for the budget. And I'd ask basically people to give input on the CIP at the same time as the budget.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, now we will move on to public comments. Sorry about that, Matt. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. Now, we do have some items on the agenda that are coming up later on in this particular meeting. I will allow public comment before each of these items that are being considered before the council. So if you wish to speak during that time when those items are being considered, you can do so. You can also choose to speak now if you wish. If you come forward, I just ask for a couple of ground rules to be adhered to. The first one is to state your name and address for the record. Limit your comments to 5 minutes. There's a clock over here on my right to your left, and it's a countdown clock. So, and you don't blow up or anything if it goes to zeros, but I might have to stop you. No profanity, no personal attacks. With that being said, the mic is now open for public comments. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there any member of the council who wishes to remove an item for the consent agenda?
Number 9, Mayor.
Number 9. Councilman? Anyone else? All right, I'll entertain a motion on the approval of consent agenda items 1 through 8.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Baldwin, that we approve consent agenda items 1 through 8. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda items 1 through 8 pass. Consent agenda item number 9, consider accepting court-ordered compensations and appraisal fees and authorizing payment for easement acquired through eminent domain is required to install water line improvements for the Prairie Trace development. Councilman, what are your questions?
Thank you, Mayor. Jim, I've already asked the question via email, but just to bring it to the public light, what is the balance in that fund that this cost will be coming from?
The balance after this cost and what the outlay for the water line extension, the balance will be $1.825 million.
Okay, thank you.
$1.825 million? Okay. Yeah, city administrator, make sure that speak into your mic. That's fine, I've got it, we got it. $1.825 million.
Yeah, that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or concerns? All right, I'll entertain a motion on consent agenda item number 9.
So moved. Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Winters, that we authorize the city administrator to accept court-ordered compensation and appraisal fees and authorizing payment for easement acquired through eminent domain is required to install water line improvements for the Prairie Trace development. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda item number 9 passes. There's nothing in planning and zoning consent. Move on to committee recommendations. Committee recommendation item number 1. Consider authorizing the execution of a contract with Haynes Equipment for replacement of the Kill Creek wastewater retention facility UV disinfection and recycled water systems. Gons Garcia.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Yeah, this item went to the Utility Advisory Commission on April 1st, and they approved a recommendation to City Council. The Kill Creek Water Resource Recovery Facility has been in operation since 2003. It's about 20 years old. Part of the treatment process is to use ultraviolet disinfection system prior to the effluent being released to Kill Creek which ends in Kansas River. Once the microorganism is passes through the UV lamps, the microorganisms are rendered sterile and no longer pose any health risk. In addition, that water is also used for wash down of equipment, irrigation, batch tank for the watering process, and spray bars along the oxidation ditch. The current system is obsolete. It's been served for close to 20 years. It's very inefficient. Uses a lot of old-style electronics, so it consumes a lot of energy. So we did an RFP. It was advertised on the city website, Drexel website, and the legal record. We received 2 proposals. Out of the 2, we're recommending Hayes Equipment to replace the existing system, and the cost is $317,000 and $580.
Thank you very much, Gons. Any public comment on committee recommendation on number 1? I know this is incredibly exciting and controversial. All right, seeing no one coming forward, any questions for Gons or for staff?
This has been a problem for a while. I feel like I remember this.
Originally, this was in the utility assessment back in 2015.
Yeah.
When I took over the utilities, I didn't think it was an immediate need. So we waited 6 years, and I think now is the time to go ahead and replace it.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on committee recommendation item number 1.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Deaton, second, Gregorsek, that we authorize the city administrator to execute a contract with Haynes Equipment for replacement of the Kill Creek WRRF UV disinfection and recycled water systems in the amount not to exceed $317,580.00. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? Committee
you.
recommendation item number 1 passes. Committee recommendation item number 2. Consider adopting an ordinance approving a rezoning from R2 to R1 district for approval of a portion of Lot 216 of the proposed Aspen Creek 5 subdivision. David Knopick.
Actually, Bob Case will be coming up to do that.
Bob Case will be okay, thank you. Municipal Planner Bob Case, how are you doing this evening, sir?
Pretty good. Now I can
Good,
take this
good.
mask off.
Speak into the microphone for posterity, please.
Absolutely. Again, we're going to go through both of these at the same time, and then we'll be readily available for questions afterwards.
So 2 and 3.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, should we address them one at a time based on comment?
We'll have separate comment periods for both.
Okay.
Yes. It's just that he's going to go through each one of these together so that we can then have, for expediting purposes or anything else. Yes. Yes, please go on.
Thank you. Overall, both Aspen Creek 5 and the Meadows of Aspen Creek 2 cover a total of 33.59 acres and consist of 89 lots. There are 33 duplex lots located within the Meadows of Aspen Creek 2 and 56 single-family lots within the proposed Aspen Creek 5. Overall, 122 new housing units are proposed, 66 attached single-family units, and 56 detached single-family units. The sub-area plan adopted in June of 2016 indicated that the future land use of the property is projected to be low-density residential on the northern portion of the property and medium-density residential on the southern portion of the property. Historically, this property was annexed into the city in 1996 as part of a larger 150-acre site. In regard to the current zoning, the northern portion is zoned to R1 since June of 1996, and the southern portion was zoned R2 since 2001. Both of these had no associated submitted plans with either of these petitions. Item CR2 pertains to the downzoning of a small piece of land located along the eastern side of the property from R2 to R1, approximately 0.12 acres in size, and the rezoning is being requested to align with the zoning area with a proposed development pattern of a single-family lot that is part of the proposed Aspen Creek 5 development. This would avoid having a lot that has two different zoning classifications on it once platted. The Plan Commission has recommended approval of the rezoning request for Aspen Creek 5. The governing body is being asked to consider the adoption of Ordinance 2698. And item CR3 is a proposed rezoning of the property that is currently zoned R2 to RP4 zoning district. This is being requested to accommodate duplex development and open space associated with the development. The RP4 district is being requested to accommodate 13 duplex lots that are under 10,000 square feet and require the approval of an associated development plan. The proposed preliminary development plan has 33 duplex lots, continues the existing roadway and pedestrian network, and incorporates an open space area. The preliminary plats associated with both the single family and the duplex area were considered by the Plan Commission with the rezoning and preliminary plan at its meeting on March 22nd. The Plan Commission has recommended approval of the zoning request and preliminary plan for the meadows of Aspen Creek 2 with 4 conditions. The governing body is being asked to consider the adoption of Ordinance 2699 and approval of the associated preliminary development plan with the 4 conditions. And the staff is, I'm ready here to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob.
Sure.
We'll start with committee recommendation item number 2. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward for public comment on that particular committee recommendation? That's for the rezoning of that very small piece of property from R2 to R1.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name's Judd Clausen with Phelps Engineering, civil engineer and land surveyors for the project. Address is 1270 North Winchester, Olathe, Kansas. I too can give you a presentation as well, but I think Bob covered quite a bit of it. So our team, Greg Prieb and Pete Heaven, are here to answer any questions along with myself.
All right. Is this for this particular item of the downzoning?
It is for this one as well as for the upcoming.
Well, actually, can we do the portion? With the downzoning?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we can keep those separate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Anyone else? All right. Seeing none, any questions on the first item to be considered? All right. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on committee recommendation item number 2.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Winters, that we accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and adopt ordinance number 2698, an ordinance changing the zoning classifications or districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the city of Gardner, Kansas. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton?
Yes.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Councilmember Diversek?
Yes.
All right, committee recommendation item number 2 passes. All right, we're moving on to committee recommendation item number 3. We've already heard Mr. Case's presentation from staff. Is there anyone who wishes to make public comment on committee recommendation item number 3?
Public comment?
Yes. Before, please state your name and address for the record and 5-minute time limit.
Scott Gary, 28749 West 184th Street, Gardner, Kansas. Thank you, Mayor. I have a few comments about this. Some of this probably won't be a surprise to some of you. First of all, I do want to thank Mr. Knopick for his patience. We've hit him with a lot of questions during this time frame, and I'm just gonna slip this in here. After you left the softball game, your daughter hit a line drive to RBI, and then she got over to third, and then my daughter hit her in, so it was 3-0 when we left before we came here, so. Some way or another, I knew
Sounds
I'd
like
find
he
a way
wants
to get
more
that in
time.
the minutes somehow. So even though we don't see eye to eye on some things, that one was fun to watch. So I don't know, maybe you got that in text. Aside from that, really I'm up here we have a lot of questions. Again, some of those don't necessarily come as a surprise to some of you. We wrote a lot in email. We've copied Mayor, Randy, Todd. I know not everybody's been on it. Jim's been on it and some things like that. But I think the first part of this issue has just come down to the fact that how this happened just really wasn't transparent, at least in the beginning. And so a lot of residents got notes on their doors. This is how it started. Construction paper printed out. Nobody even knew who it was from. Telling everybody to get all their junk off the property. And so, of course, then that raises questions. Moving along, just looking at some of this too, and again, I think there's going to be a lot of confusion still. But it seems like there's a lot of contradictory information regarding the codes linked to the city's webpage. And so there's one place in the Land Development Code and there's another one in the City Code that explains who's supposed to be notified. So then when everybody was trying to figure out, well, how do I protest the zoning? What code am I looking at? So one of the codes says that it's the property adjacent to those other properties. And so reading that code, that means that the 5 houses, at least on my street, they all should have been notified and there should have been signs posted abutting those streets. I know some aren't here tonight, but they were here at the Planning Commission meeting. They did receive letters, but the letters didn't match the signs that were posted at the dead end. One of those was Mr. Leon, I don't know how to pronounce that, but he spoke at the Planning Commission meeting. And so there was confusion there. The piece of land in question, and you saw in the display and everything else, you're seeing one parcel. But when it comes to the zoning and rezoning all of this, then we're saying when we don't want to notify somebody, well, we're only looking at the part that's being rezoned. But everything that you're approving tonight is one parcel. And so I think that would help to clarify some of that. There's questions is like, why is R4 necessary? PREB has done developments in other parts of this county that have gone R2, R3. And I think there's a lot of concern about what if that doesn't happen? Some people are already, and I'm trying not to speak for everybody in Aspen Creek, but I'm just trying to convey some frustrations. We're hearing about Arbor Day proclamation tonight while people are upset that the construction that happened on the south side of the power line, overhead power lines, those trees were a bunch of them were getting cut down. They already have flooding and retention pond issues there. And so there's really nothing, there for anybody to do. I know that this is still saying it's contingent on the stormwater and the traffic. Right now, traffic already is not fun on that south side of town. There's a quick trip. There's all this other stuff going in. The only HOA aspect of Aspen Creek really is that corner on the pool, where the pool is. And that's just going to be a lot of traffic there. And when I was the director of Parks and Rec, we met with Roush Coleman. One of those things was, and I brought this up in the Planning Commission meeting. Sorry, I got a minute. The Planning Commission meeting was that the main concern was traffic. And so, I know I brought up the park stuff. It's his HOA park. He can put it there. It's going to be surrounded by traffic. Good luck with all of that. That's up to him. It's not going to be a public park from what I understand. But I also think that the code is also being used to say that they're using buffer area as park space, and the land development code says they're supposed to be separate. And then the only other thing I would say is that I really think this council really needs to, because we keep seeing Quail Meadows, Kill Creek. I know all those grant money and all that other stuff is in there. You guys really need to find a way to get some park space south of 183rd. You guys are already going to compact it with approval of this. Traffic is going to blow up. People are going to cut through 183rd through this neighborhood and try to cut down. And the only place that kids are going to congregate in this HOA is at that pool. And to me, it's already dangerous enough. And so I just think you need to really consider about the amount of that you're impacting it. I'm not against development. I'm not against, you know, hey, let's do that, but let's consider property values. Let's be a little more transparent and try to clarify some things. So that's where I'm at with that. And if you know the score, please let me know, because I have no clue.
5-2.
Oh, we're up? Okay, good. So
Thanks, Scott.
that's it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And then, Mayor, before the next citizen steps up to
I'm
the.
sorry, I've got to call that, it's public comment time.
Yeah, this is a public comment. I just
but,
wanted to submit it on behalf of the citizen.
If you could read, if you could send it to me, I can read it.
I don't want to read it all, it's a page and a half. I just wanted to highlight that Mr. Huff, which lives in this neighborhood.
And we received that, all of us received that letter.
Yep, and I wanted to read it into record. That he objected to the rezoning of the property R2 to R4 and development of the number of duplexes proposed. In closing, I guess, his concern is also about traffic safety.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and get that into the record. Send it to the city clerk. We'll have that published and added to the minutes. Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else who wishes to speak on this item? Yes, Mr. Clausen, you said you had a brief presentation.
I do have a brief presentation, and if it pleases the council and the mayor, I'd like to just run through it real quickly.
That is fine.
Okay.
As soon as we're ready, we'll start your clock.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Again, Judd Clausen, Phelps Engineering, 1270 North Winchester, Olathe, Kansas, for the record.
And please, if you could speak more into the microphone, I know it's a little bit low. You can raise it, just make it a little bit easier. We have been asked by folks in the public to try to speak more into the mics, so.
Absolutely. Is this better?
Much better, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is it this?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Briefly, this is the overall area of the site. I think you're very familiar with that. The single family on the north side, the duplexes on the south, and then the area where the overhead power lines that were referenced by the last speaker are on the southern end there, which aligns with kind of that green space corridor that runs from Gardner Road all the way over to the southeast corner of our property. As mentioned by staff and in your staff report, the northern section is all, and excuse me, the graphic is not correct, it's R1 single family, so that's a typo there, but it's 16 acres, 56 lots in that single family. The southern part, we are requesting an R4, and I will get into that in just a minute. We are not proposing apartments or townhomes or, density there. It was really a matter in working with your professional staff of trying to get the duplex to fit with the best within the different requirements within the actual city UDO, and probably Dave could explain that a little further. But it had to do with your lot types and your building types and some of those requirements, as well as your lot areas. But as you can see, actually pretty low density for a duplex project at 3.75 units to the acre. The staff did mention that there may not have been an existing plan on the property. My client bought this from the landowner last year. This was the plan that was represented for the single family to the north. As you can see, there's an eastern north-south street that was all set up. Again, this was part of that overall plan for the whole layout of the subdivision, and it connects up at the north end with the east-west street that ties into the existing subdivision, a cul-de-sac in the middle, and then a connection to the west at the southern end, that's an east-west street. Our plan, much the same. Same street patterns. There's actually one less lot here, primarily due to, and I'll flip back to the prior screen. You'll see at the southeast corner, there's no street stub there. There's no way to get to the next development when it comes in, to kind of make connectivity a key for transportation and solving traffic problems, right? So you'll see on our plan that we did provide that street stub to the east, and that was, again, working with your professional staff, understanding some of the traffic concerns that are in the neighborhood, and you can very lightly see a ghosted layout for how single-family lots to the right there or to the east might work with that future street. So not only did we provide a stub, but we tried to provide it in a very thoughtful manner so that if that were to ever develop as single family, that could be done. Of course, we're not here to represent that property. We're just showing you, the planning that's gone into this by my client and the staff. The southern end, this was the layout that was represented to us as part of that, final phase of Aspen Creek. And as you can see, it's on the eastern side of the property. There's a north-south street that connects to the one that was prior. And there's actually a sanitary sewer main that's laid and constructed on the eastern side of that road that's in place, that was all set up for this as part of the overall master plan to serve the development that's already there, as well as this future development. You'll see there's a cul-de-sac on the northwest corner, and then a street connection back to the west that ties into the street that goes on out to Gardner Road. Fast forward to our project, again, much the same street layout. You'll notice that the cul-de-sac at the northwest end has a bulb in it, and we're actually going to install a median in there to cut down on all the pavement in that area. So when you look at the two, that northwest corner, it extends a little farther south with the bulb of that cul-de-sac. And then the street section that goes off to the west, that's there, as well as a street stub off to the right or to the east, again, for a possible future connection. We just completed on another project, 188th Street, as part of a benefit district. That was part of the Plaza South development and a petition, and the city completed that. We were the design engineers for that. The ultimate plan in all of that is that potentially 188th Street could cycle through the city, such that it would start, and you could see it in the lower left corner of your screen there, and it would follow up along, much like a frontage road along the interstate there, and then continue off to the northeast. And the ultimate alignment, we don't know yet, but the opportunity is there, and this subdivision really helps provide for that opportunity. Again, having more connections and other ways for people to get in and out is part of solving an overall transportation and traffic concern. We heard a lot about traffic questions tonight, and I just wanted to let you know we've really worked hard to try to build into this plan. The last thing I want to kind of focus on is that southern area.
Hold on just a moment.
Excuse me.
You're out of time. Is there a objection for him to completing his presentation from anyone on the council? Is there? Okay, all right.
I'll be very brief.
Yes.
This southern area here, we are programming that to have a walking trail and golf stations, as well as a hammock garden in there. So it's not just an open space that is not accessible. We've actually moved that access point back to the west. The prior plan only had a small access point over at the far southeast corner that was at a dead-end part of the street. Here we've actually included it such that the subdivision to the west can actually access it very reasonably, and provided it on the plan, whereas the previous plan did not even include it in the plat, so no excise tax was being paid for that. That's another 7-some acres of excise tax that we're including in our project, which can help go to public improvements. A quick picture of some of the units that being proposed. Of course, this is a lot colder, and I'm sure glad it's a lot warmer today. And we'll continue to work with staff at final plan for the architecture on that. Lastly, there were some questions at Planning Commission about drainage and what we're doing there. I just wanted to kind of preemptively talk about that. Some of the residents mentioned that drainage is an issue, and you can see this is a drainage map for the area. The single families at the north end there. There's a blue line running from north to south. That's our proposed new storm sewer that will go in to serve the project. You've got existing single family to the north and west there that drains into an unimproved swale that kind of meanders onto some people's property there. And what we're doing is intercepting a lot of that flow, getting it in a pipe, and then doing yard grading to collect and solve for some localized issues. So I think storm drainage wise, you're going to see quite a bit of improvement in the area. So with that, I'll end, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Clausen. Appreciate it. Any other individuals who wish to make public comment? All right. Any questions for the applicant, for Bob, or anyone in development on this particular, on either one of the two? Oh, no, the first one we already talked about. The second one, the RP4. And one real quick clarification. Applicant's saying R4, commenter said R4, it's RP4, correct?
That is correct. It's RP4, which is a planned district, which requires a preliminary development plan and a final development plan associated with it. The key part of that is that the plan becomes part of the regulatory function for any future land use and development. So if there were a significant change to the development plan or pattern from what is proposed in this preliminary plan, it would have to go back through Planning Commission, back through another public hearing, and come back before you again. So the R4 district is the zoning district, but the P designation is critical because that preliminary plan and then the final plan that would be part of the next steps is what puts the limitations on this property as far as the use and the design and other facets.
I just wanted to make that clear because I think there was some confusion there. Anyone else?
I had a question.
Yes.
Can we just get some clarification, because R2 is duplexes, and so I think a lot of concerns with moving to RP4, allowing for multi-density. Why, if we're just having duplexes, can we just have that clarified on why we want to do that?
Yeah, the reason that staff led to that direction is that 13 of the 33 lots that are proposed for duplexes are under 10,000 square feet. Our current code requires in the R2 district that all lots would be 10,000 square feet. The 13 lots would require a deviation for each lot, which would be 13 deviations. We try to push applicants towards what I'll call the best fit in our zoning code, if you will. And again, knowing that the R4 district would allow for other types of housing because it is to be a mixed use or a medium density type development area when it's a zoning district like that. The preliminary plan, again, is what goes ahead and limits this to duplexes only.
So really, the whole point of this was to keep from having to do a bunch of deviances like we did in other developments.
Yeah, we've had situations with as many as 20, 25 deviations, and it becomes a very difficult plan to go ahead and enforce over time because you got to be cognizant of every one of those deviations on every one of those lots on every one of those sites. So again, when we talk about best fit, we're trying to make this so that it's easier for us to implement and regulate through the process when it's in construction.
Councilman, I saw you going to the mic. Is there?
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt
Yes,
Mr.
yes.
Nopick. I've got several questions, and I'll try to run through them. I support this infill. I think it's there's a need for from our community for this type of this housing. But I guess my concerns are drainage. I'm not too worried about the park. My concerns are safety. And then my concern goes back to what Mr. Nopick spoke of, just to make sure that, and to Casey's point, that the duplexes stay duplexes and don't become fourplexes or what have you. So I guess my first question would be, how does the drainage, and I appreciated the map, the blue line illustration, but how does that drainage match up to the church's drainage that's just south and west of it?
Yeah, I'm going to let Mr. Clausen maybe speak, and also if Kellen could also speak on that as well.
Councilman, the church's drainage, could you be more specific? Which parcel on this map are you?
It's the parcel that's the ACP2 zoning right there, that parcel on the left, on the right-hand side, the open,
Okay.
the big parcel there.
All right, so that project there with the Plaza South, that has its own detention basins on the north side and along that east side of that property there that serve detention not only for the church, but also for kind of the middle and eastern portions of that whole development. It then drains, and I'm not sure I can have a pointer on this, but it then drains kind of towards the south and southeast, and then eventually crosses the interstate in that tributary there that you see in the between the ACP2 and the C3. There's a kind of a treed tributary low area there on the map. This drainage comes down from our property along our western property line, which the blue line showed you, and then kind of comes to the right-hand side of the C3 there. And there's a detention basin that is just north of that in that public area that we've
Back
got.
to the park.
Right, so that's where we'll be doing our stormwater treatment and our detention. and then releasing it back to the south into that trib, which is another trib over to the east.
Okay. Yeah, so I see that the outlet would be right at the threshold of the park entrance. Is that correct?
So it'll be right there on the south side of the street there into that.
To the east of the walking path.
Right, and then we'll have culverts for the walking path and have a low depression area there for the water to be able to back up on and then leave to the south. I would also point out that we do not intend to take down any trees along that south property line. There's a pretty good grove of trees all along that section line through there, and we have no intention of taking any of those down.
Okay, appreciate you. Appreciate your answers. The next question is, I guess more of a clarification question, Jim or Jason. The code says parkland is addition to buffer and landscaping areas, so I'm just kind of wanting to clarify that.
Dave, you get that?
Yeah, and this has been a little bit of a confusion throughout the whole discussion of this item, so I appreciate you bringing up that comment. There's a couple things to note here. There is a difference between park in the sense of public park. This will not be a public park. This is a privately owned park or open, messed it up, an open space area.
Which means they maintain.
Which means they maintain it, they're building the facility, they're maintaining the facility. The developer would be engaged in that until the HOA comes into existence, which is usually some trigger in the development process when that happens. Now that doesn't mean that people from other parts of the neighborhood aren't gonna be allowed to walk there. They don't, you don't see these HOA open spaces regulated to that level generally. But it is the HOA maintained property, so it is associated with this development and this ownership. So when we think about this, I want to make sure there's good clarification. It is not really park. Now we do have in the LDC and the Land Development Code, under the open space requirements, there are different types of open space that are listed, and those are for example purposes. In one of those categories, it does say park. So I've already made a note that we're going to have to clean up some language because I want people to understand that's just a typology that's being used here versus a greenway typology or a natural open space typology and things like that. So that's where I get a little sensitive because when we throw around park, a lot of people think of public park right of way, and this development would be still would be subject to our park impact fees per unit in addition to providing this open space. And the open space is part of the requirement for the development.
Okay, thank you. And staying with the park, and I guess this is a general question, but is there any concerns about the power lines and the proximity of the neighborhood park? Is that fair, Mr. Novick? Neighborhood park?
I'll call it neighborhood open space.
Neighborhood open space, AKA park?
There's not from our standpoint. In fact, at Planning Commission, I gave another example of Buffalo Meadows Park up in Lenexa, Kansas, that has play fields underneath power lines as part of actually a city park in that example.
Yeah, merely a question. I appreciate the response. So if there was any changes to that space, would you have to kind of cohabitate with the power line company, or how does that work?
We do have to get an encroachment agreement with them, and generally, trails and frisbee golf type things are acceptable encroachments. Things that are not would be like buildings and that type of thing.
Okay.
And I'm going to interject for just a second because I think also what you would have here is a situation where they would need that approval from the utility company. But on the same hand, if there was a significant change to this facility, okay, and that would be something where the HOA, I'm going to assume after development, that would happen. The HOA would have to approach the city to see if any changes they wanted to make to the recreational components were to be changed. We would have to determine if that's a significant enough change to bring it back through the planning process or if it would be allowable.
Okay. Just a couple of more questions, Mayor, and I appreciate your patience. And I'm going to tread lightly on this because I think there's room for improvement on the city's behalf. In the documentation that was presented at Planning Commission, it talked about low-income tax credit housing. And then Mr. Case mentioned the cost of homes, and I couldn't find it in the minutes, which was different than what was found in the Planning Commission agenda. So I just wanted to clarify that these were not low-income tax credit homes.
That is correct. These are for rent, market rate product.
And when you say market rate, and I'm not holding you to it, I don't have such influence, but that's the free market. But what range would you say the free market would dictate that would become?
The duplexes on average would be $1,600 to $1,800 a month. The average price would be about $250,000 valuation per unit.
And those units would become a part of the HOA, so they'd have HOA dues on top of that? If I'm understanding what Mr. Knopick spoke of and what was spoken of during the planning commission meeting?
Well, we will have our own HOA as
Right.
part of this. So
if I moved into one of your duplexes, I would have to pay HOA dues on top of my rent?
Correct. If
No.
the HOA is organized that way, understand the HOA,
absolutely.
yeah, the HOA comes into existence through
There's a
the
trail.
covenants and restrictions and
Right.
things like that. The city is not party to those elements, and I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. So it's kind of hard for Mr. Clausen to answer that question because I don't know that that's been figured out completely by the developer yet.
Yeah, and that's
as to
fair,
what they may do.
but it's
on
a
that.
possibility. Is what
It
I'm
is a
trying
possibility.
to
It just
get to.
depends.
So typically in a for rent product, you have a rent amount that you pay per month, and then the developer covers those types of HOA costs as part of what he's asking for on the rental cost. So yes, there is a payment, but it may not be directly to the renter. On a
Right,
single
it'd be
family,
indirect to the renter
Right.
versus the renter paying you X
Right.
plus another $200 or $300.
on the single family, that's all for sale product, so those will be assessed, just like any single family HOA assessment would be.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
If I could, Councilman, I just want to clarify too, the confusion about the low income tax credits, because we have had an internal conversation with staff about this. That is a detail that was shown. It's actually taken from a adopted plan or document that the city has, and it was in the staff report under our analysis section, because many times what we're doing is we're drawing elements out of the various plans that indicate how a proposed development may or may not fit in with various goals or policies and recommendations out of those long-range plans. So we have had an internal discussion about that because there was confusion. People were assuming that that was part of the application. The application did not refer to rents and did not refer to low-income tax credits.
Well, I mean, we've heard it here tonight from Mr. Case as well as yourself, so we shouldn't have any risk of that moving forward. You're in it for profit, and rightfully so. So I think we've beat that horse enough. But I just wanted to make sure that I clarified it because I attended the planning commission meeting, and I heard quite loudly the difference, and it just didn't make sense to me. So I wanted to be patient and wait my turn to ask that question. So I appreciate the response.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to ask some questions? Yes, Mr. Baldwin.
Mr. Gorsuch, since you brought up Mr. Huff's email, I just wanted to circle back on that. Because every single email I received had something to do with the R4 designation and the confusion. Mr. Huff, after I wrote him back, his response was, "Thank you for clarifying the zoning, that makes sense. My fear was the ability to change the multiplexes without oversight and creating more traffic." So I think once people understand, everybody I've talked to has been more receptive to the project. So I just want to circle back to that.
No, and duly noted, Councilman Baldwin. I'd go back to what Huff said and kind of bring his example of his daughter almost getting hit on 183rd, which this body and some former members were a part of getting a light or a flashing light and all kinds of good stuff. So I know that safety is paramount to his family and the community, so good point.
And I just want to acknowledge for the record too, it is RP4. I have a typo on the screen.
No, that's fine. I appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't really have a question about the plan. It does concern me that Mr. Garrity said maybe there was some issues with the signage and the postings, and I don't know if going forward and that might not be this development, but just as a whole, that we make sure that you know, things are posted right and we notify people, et cetera.
Let me get some clarification on that, because I need to know, the notice requirements were satisfied, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Where the confusion came in, or best I can tell, on the website or through looking at different parts of the website, there is some sections where we have older versions of the code that are on the website, and they're indicated as a previous code or part of the old zoning requirements. Anybody who's referencing our adopted codes needs to look at that municipal code page, and it's Title 17, and those are the processes that we follow. There are some language differences that were pointed out here that are changed from the old code versions. Now, why they were changed, that was prior to me, I do not know why that wording was changed. But we did follow the appropriate notice according to the way that practice has been followed since Title 17 was adopted.
So we really need to clean up those inconsistencies on the website.
Well, yeah, there's a number of things on the website that we're still trying to go through and clear up, because there are older documents, and many times it's not quite as clear depending on what link you got, what link was shared, and how it got from one place to another place. So that's why I want to clarify that Title 17, going to the municipal code segment of this and going to Title 17, that's the critical element of that.
And Mayor, if I might piggyback on what Tori said, Councilwoman.
Make it quick, sir.
Do I have a timer?
You spent most of the time talking.
As I was saying, how do we trust but verify that, Dave, that we do have the right signage for public notice, the big yellow signs? Because I drove out a couple of days before the Planning Commission, and I could only find one sign. Now, granted, I've had signs in my past, and they blow over, or kids play with them, or what have you. But how do we do the verify of the trust part?
Yeah, part of it comes down to once the applicant or staff actually posts the property, then it's a matter of periodic visits and trying to see if it's been moved or not moved. Generally, from a statutory standpoint, it's just like when we send a notice letter. Once we've sent the notice letter and followed the process, if somebody did not receive it, that's not on us. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily right, but that's generally how it's interpreted. In this case, too, we had some of that parcel, especially the sliver, where it's tucked in way back in that property or that parcel. We had to post those signs at the end of roadways, even though it wasn't right on the property. So basically the instruction is to put it on the property in a visible location or very close to the property so that it's noticeable. Those signs should have been on both 185th and 186th at the dead end locations. I do know we took photos of them as they were put up and things like that, so we do know they're there, and that's how we verify that we've actually placed them up there. Other communities will require the applicant to do those things. And then provide an affidavit that it's happened, and they have to provide the documentation too. So this has fallen as a staff task as part of the way we've been doing our practices here, but I will say we're visiting that as to how we want to move forward with whether the applicants will be given those responsibilities in the future or if we will.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? I just wanted to mention very quickly, this is my neighborhood. I actually live in Evergreen Park, which is just to the west of here. Just a little bit of a background here. So if you look at the property on 186th Street, directly west of the proposed development, there are already duplexes in that area. They're also in the same price classification as the ones that are being contemplated for Canton Street south of 185th. And then on the northern side of the property, those are the quote-unquote R2 designation that they're looking at, R1 I should say, designation they're looking at. That's also single family in the same price classification as the ones that are already present on 184th Street. So in terms of consistency with the use of the property directly adjacent to that, it seems to be very consistent. Am I correct in that, Director Nopick?
You're correct in that there are duplexes there. I do not know specifically what the cost ranges are and the different rents or mortgages and things that exist there.
They're market rate, and they are right in that that same basic classification. I actually have neighbors in the area that have told me that they're paying about $1,500, $1,600 a month for their rents. So, all Any other questions? All right. We'll move on to a vote, and I believe these are rezoning votes, correct? So I would be voting as well. All right. I will entertain a motion on the committee recommendation item number 3.
So moved. Second.
Motion Baldwin, second Deaton. Here. Okay, that we accept the recommendation of Planning Commission, adopt ordinance number 2699, an ordinance changing the zoning classifications or districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the city of Gardner. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorsik,
Hesitantly, yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Mayor Shute.
Yes. All right, ordinance number 2699 passes. Moving on to old business.
Mr. Mayor, if I can interject, I
Yes,
just want
sir.
to make sure the motion was to adopt that ordinance, but also to consider approving the associated preliminary development
is
plan.
correct.
I want to make sure that's incorporated in that.
That is correct, and I believe it is not, and I apologize. So this would also approve the associated preliminary development plan for Meadows of Aspen Creek 2, which is already logged with the city development department.
Yeah, I would just
Legal?
check with legal, to see, do we want a separate motion since it wasn't specifically mentioned with the ordinance?
Yeah, I think for cleanliness, it might be good to just do a second motion. Whether you want to completely redo it or just add it in, I think it's the second motion to add it in.
Okay, yeah, unfortunately, the language of the initial motion did not include the preliminary development plan approval, and thank you very much.
Sure, there's a motion for that, would be good.
So
Okay.
moved.
Oh, wait, I need to ask for the motion first. Councilman Baldwin. Council Vice President. Jumping the gun here. I'd like to entertain a motion on accepting the recommendation, well, not the recommendation, but accepting the preliminary development plan for Meadows of Aspen Creek 2.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Baldwin, second Deaton, that we accept the associated preliminary development plan for Meadows of Aspen Creek 2 pursuant to rezoning. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We're not going to go around the horn like we did last.
No, this is not part of an ordinance, I don't believe.
It's RP4, it has to go.
It has to be if it's RP4.
Does it have to require a separate ordinance? Because that would be a separate ordinance.
Well, then strike the last motion and redo it.
This is just a revote.
Yeah, I understand, but it wasn't done right the first time.
Favor these both ordinance 2699.
Do you want to strike it?
If they're both the same ordinance, we can just strike the first one and go again.
2698 is a separate ordinance from 2699.
Yeah,
2699 is just for the R2 to the RP4. I believe the ordinance has wording that it is an RP4 district in the ordinance that's in the packet.
And that we have to
So,
approve
so
this.
that has that in there. My clarification that I was looking for was just to make sure that we have approved the preliminary plan because it's usually associated with that RP4.
And the motion that was read in did not include that.
Right.
So we want to have just a revote on that?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay, so I will read the motion again, all right? And then I will ask for a motion and a second. We are now striking the previous question, and we will move to a new question with striking ordinance 2699, all right? I'll entertain a motion on ordinance 2699.
To be struck.
We don't have to have a vote to strike it, do we, legal?
Well, yeah, if you want to just amend the motion, then you don't need a vote to strike it.
All right, well, then we'd have to have a motion to amend the motion.
Yeah, so if you want to call for a motion to amend, that might be.
All right, motion to amend.
Might take the same time either way, but it might be
Yeah.
to amend.
So moved.
All right, motion, there's a motion to amend the motion.
Second.
Motion, Roberts, second, Baldwin, that we amend ordinance number 2699 and add the language, and approve the associated preliminary development plan for Meadows of Aspen Creek 2. Is that acceptable? Okay.
Yes.
All right. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaworski,
Hesitantly, yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Mayor Schuler.
Yes. All right. Amended ordinance 2699 passes. That should be satisfactory. All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Clausen, for your clarifications.
Thank you.
Yep. Moving on to old business. Old business item number 1, consider authorizing the execution of a contract with Gardner Disposal, Inc. for the 2021 citywide cleanup. Kellen Headley, you can make the presentation from there. You can go to the podium. Your choice. Okay.
So this is the same item that we talked about at the last meeting. The essential changes from the last council action form that you've all seen is per council's direction, we reach back out to Gardner Disposal regarding the proposed options or changes that would possibly limit the kind of top dollar value on our original request to them. What we received back from Gardner Disposal is that they were not particularly equipped or interested in the additional risk that they would take on for either operating a ticketing system or not having the inclusion of a guaranteed minimum dollar value in there, essentially indicating that if we were to change from our original request to them, they would pull out of the endeavor altogether. So at that point, we are essentially left with, we can either move forward as the original contract was bid, which was bid at $200 a ton with a guaranteed minimum of 200 tons at a $40,000 minimum bid with the possibility of $200 a ton for any additional tonnage over that.
All right. Any public comments on old business item number 1? No one coming forward. Any questions for Mr. Headley? I'm sure that Council Vice President might have a couple of questions.
Not
No,
in
you
particular, no.
Okay.
I'm perfectly happy with Gardner Disposal saying what they said. It's a business. They have overhead. It's not part of their normal pickup. They've got overtime. I mean, it's their prerogative to specify what they need, and whether or not we want to meet it is up to us.
Okay. Was there any conversation that went with Gardner Disposal had to do with the limitation of items on the curb? Because I think
They did indicate that if limitations were removed, they would also have removed their bid.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So I believe that maybe moving forward, once we get through this agenda item, and based on the value from a financial perspective that this annual Gardner service has become, that maybe it's a good opportunity for an RFP. But I think that kind of changing the rules of engagement or the expectations so close to the anniversary of, of doing it was a bit of a not fair move. And I'm speaking for myself. I do think that they could provide some data for us as the motion stands, which is basically just tick marks of how many houses they hit on the south side of 56 and on the north side of 56. And that would enable us as a city and those that are on the dais to be better equipped and get ahead of this if they want those changes, and be able to, Mark's point, through the RFP process, allow those vendors that are interested to do it based on these expectations, which aren't very high, enable them to price that into their bids. So I would make a motion to accept old business item number 1 as it stands originally.
So moved.
Oh, there's already a motion. You'd be seconding?
Yeah, second.
Okay. Motion Gregorczyk, second Roberts, that we authorize the city administrator to execute a contract with Gardner Disposal, Inc. for the 2021.
Any more discussion?
He had already made a motion, and there's a second.
What about public comment?
I will ask for, I already asked for public comment, and there was no one coming forward.
Not on this issue.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. All right, so I will ask for further discussion once we have the motion cleared. Okay, so let me go ahead and read it out. All right. Motion, Gregorczyk, second, Roberts, that we authorize the city administrator to execute a contract with Gardner Disposal, Inc. for the 2021 citywide cleanup for a guaranteed total of $40,000, and authorize the city administrator to approve additional costs at $200 per ton based on actual tonnage collected. Any further discussion on the motion?
Yeah.
Come on, Council President.
Yeah, no, I've been thinking about that, and to Mark's point, I understand not wanting to subsidize your neighbor. You know, if you're not putting out trash and your neighbor is, you're essentially subsidizing them. But I think that's the case in other areas as well. You know, the Gardner Airport, Gardner Golf Course. I mean, I think there's other services that we provide that, you know, I don't fly an airplane, but I'm support tax money being spent on the airport. So I feel that this, I get a sense that this is popular in the community. I feel that there's a lot of in the community that appreciate this service, not just a few people here and there. I mean, I think there's a good swell of support for this in the community. And I also think it helps the community in general clean up. I mean, I think there's people that can't afford to take things to the dump, and so it may sit on the side of their house. And so I think from that standpoint, it's a benefit as well. So I'm in favor of it, actually, and I was last time, but that's just some of the reasons I support this.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Sure.
All right, Mark. You couldn't help yourself, could you?
Well, I mean, everybody's referencing me at this point. I don't think you're going to get any more proposals than we've had in the past, Mr. Gregorczyk. I mean, they're just not interested in doing this. And that's up to them. That's fine. If we were going to, and I don't advocate for this, but if we were going to do said trash pickup and we wanted to make sure that we were taking care of it, I would do something like we did with the wood and lumber, or not lumber, but your tree.
Yard refuse.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yard
That we
waste.
had where we brought it to the fairgrounds and chipped it up. So more of a, we take our front end loaders and backhoes and dump trucks, and we find out what it would cost for the city to haul it to the dump. And we drive our own equipment around and pick up our own stuff and throw it away. Or, better yet, everybody brings it to a city location, and then you don't have to worry about driving all over town. Pick it up and haul it away. But I would like to see the numbers on what it would cost to go to the dump and X number.
That actually makes a lot of sense, because I know that Ottawa, for example, charges, I think, $15 a load. That's a heck of a lot cheaper than spending $200 a ton on
Now,
private parties doing that.
If we were going to do that, since we would then find out what the cost is and we could have an estimate, then I would also say that you would charge your resident, just as to your point about the airport and other things, right? At the golf course, you pay green fees. At the airport, you pay to lease, a hangar. At the pool, you pay to get in, right? So why not pay to take away your trash? Now, that's not on the table for this, unless we, dispose of this. No pun intended.
Well,
but,
I think that that's not necessarily germane to the motion in question, but yes, I
But
understand what you're saying.
I don't think we should be using tax dollars in general to be supporting one of those things that is a nicety and not a requirement when we have unfunded projects and other things and sidewalks crumbling and so forth. So I still won't be supporting this.
Understood. Any further discussion? Please keep it germane to the topic.
I will say, I personally, on a personal level, absolutely love the cleanup and have participated every time it's been offered. Sitting up here and knowing that we're signing what is essentially a blank check for the citizens, that's a real struggle for me because we don't know what it's going to be. And to Mark's point, we have unfunded projects, and I wouldn't hire somebody to do work at my house without knowing how much it's going to be. So this, to me, it's a blank check, and that is concerning.
Well,
Thank you.
I think we've got a great opportunity for next year to look at what Mark discussed, what Mark and I discussed at the last meeting. I mean, there's a plethora of opportunities out there. And Gardner Disposal, although I trade with them, may not be interested. There may be others. So nonetheless, we have a motion on the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Councilman. There is a motion and a second. I will go to a vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
No.
You did it again, Mark.
Are my no's
All right.
louder than my yeses?
As the chair determines the winner of the voice vote and the ayes have it by the chair,
I want to phone a
motion
friend.
carries. You gonna call for a division? You want a voice vote? Or you want a roll call vote?
No, I just wanted to phone a friend.
Oh, okay. Well, you can't phone a friend. Sorry. All right. Motion carries.
Germaine.
Yes. All right. New business item number 1. Consider adopting a resolution setting a public hearing and providing consideration for amending a community improvement district within the city of Gardner, Main Street Marketplace. Matt Wolf and Tyler Ellsworth, who is here for the first time in many months. Good evening.
We've been keeping our bond counsel, Tyler Ellsworth, pretty busy recently. So I invited him to be here to go over the first 3 items with you.
That's called a punt right there, Tyler.
Well, that's fair enough. Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's good to be here. Items 1 and 2 are related, and so what I'd like to do is provide you a little bit of background about the requests that relate to new business items 1 and 2, and kind of orient you to what we're talking about, and then I'll shift gears and talk a little bit about the specifics of the process that we're looking at and asking you to consider. So, as you'll recall, in 2018 and 2019, the city was requested to put in a TIF district and a community improvement district in connection with building the new price chopper and redeveloping the entirety of the shopping center, really, that the former price chopper is located in. So I've got a map here, and just to orient you, on the lower portion of the map we have Main Street US Highway 56. That comes up, sort of curves up to the right on the bottom of the screen to the intersection of US 56 and Moonlight Road. Of course, in the upper left-hand portion of your screen, sort of the upper left-hand third or quarter, is where the new price chopper is located. The middle portion of the screen, the middle portion of the district outlined in that bold black line, is the existing Moonlight Plaza inline shops. And then in the far right-hand, upper right-hand portion of the district outlined in that thick black line is the former price chopper building. And the thick outline is the boundary of the existing TIF district and the existing community improvement district. The developer in 2018, when they were assembling all this land, reached out to the owner of the former Casey's site, which is down there in the lower left-hand corner. And my understanding is that at that time the property wasn't for sale, or at least it wasn't for sale to the prior developer. In the 2 or 3 years now that have gone by, that site has been sold, and what's listed as Lot 2 down there in kind of that funny shape, if I go to the next slide, there are actually 3 separate tax parcels down there. This is the extreme southwest corner of this shopping center. So there you're looking at Lot 2, and there's that cross-hatched parcel. There are 3 tax parcels here. The parcel on the left, as you're looking at it, is not included in the existing TIF and CID, And the request is to include that parcel in both of those districts. And part of the reason for that is because the new Freddy's development is actually, and this is the site plan for Freddy's, and Mr. Notvick can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I believe is proposed for the western half of this site. And so the new Freddy's is on this additional parcel, and it's also on part of the existing TIF and CID. So what we're trying to do is to clean this up and expand the TIF district so that TIF increment that's generated there goes to reimburse the developer's costs for all their work on the shopping center as a whole, and the same for the CID revenues. We would include Freddy's in the CID. Sales tax would be generated there. It would increase the rate that the developer is reimbursed for their costs for redeveloping the entirety of the project. So that's just to orient you. You're being requested to consider two separate resolutions this evening. The first relates to the Community Improvement District. The second relates to the TIF District. Those resolutions set public hearings for your June 7th council meeting to consider the addition of this parcel to each of those two districts. At that time, on June 7th, there's a public hearing associated with each of these items, and there's also an ordinance that council would consider and potentially pass that would make this effective. So
Thank
that,
you, Tyler.
yep, I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Yes, thank you. Don't go far. Public comment on new business item number 1 or on number 2. I guess they're being used, they're being considered in tandem, correct?
Correct, and I should mention that the developer's attorney, Kurt Peterson, has joined us by Zoom this evening, so he can answer any questions for them.
Yes, I see Mr. Peterson on Zoom. Welcome, sir. All right, so any public comment on new business items 1, 2? Seeing none, any questions for Tyler or Council Peterson or our staff? Yes.
So Tyler, when we approved the TIF, there was certain criteria for, the area being blighted and so forth. By adding additional square footage, does any of that have to be revisited?
That's a really good question. The statutes aren't clear on that. And so I think in this case, I looked at that and I got comfortable with the fact that had this been included from the beginning, the entire shopping center would still have been blighted for statutory purposes. And so I think it's within the spirit of the statute to consider this addition at this time without going through an entirely new blight study. And really, you can't go through a new blight study at this point because of the improvements that have subsequently been made.
I just didn't know if there was a certain square footage or something that
Triggers that?
once you trigger, or, because obviously if you approve something and then you added 50 acres, well, that changes things.
Right, it does, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Any other questions? This is just for clarification. This is to start the clock on the public hearing process. That is all, correct?
That's correct. You're not approving anything tonight. We're just
Correct.
setting a public hearing for June 7th.
Yes.
And we're going over new business item number 1 and 2.
Correct.
Okay.
So we have two separate resolutions. One is for one set of Kansas statutes, and the other one is for the other Kansas statute that has to do with TIF and CID respectively, because they have to be considered separately.
Correct.
All right? Any other comments, questions, discussion? And I'll entertain a motion on Resolution 2080.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Deaton, that we adopt resolution number 2080, resolution of the City of Gardner, Kansas, providing for notice of a public hearing to consider adding area to a community improvement district within the city pursuant to KSA 12-6A26 et sec, as amended for the Main Street Marketplace Community Improvement District. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Deaton?
Yes.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Resolution number 2080 passes. I'll entertain a motion on resolution number 2081.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Winters. Yeah, that's his name. To adopt resolution number 2081, a resolution of the city of Gardner, Kansas, providing for notice of a public hearing to consider adding an area to a redevelopment district within the city pursuant to KSA 12-1770 et sec as amended, also known as the Main Street Marketplace Redevelopment District. City Clerk.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
All right, resolution number 2081 passes. New business item number 3. Consider adopting an ordinance approving the execution and delivery of a development agreement for a development project within the city, Plaza South, and amending ordinance number 2364, changing the start date of the Plaza South Community Improvement District. Tyler, you're up again.
I am.
Matt's completely, he's done. He's done for the evening.
Yeah. Fair enough. So also in 2019, the fall of 2019, the city approved a community improvement district for the Plaza South development. That's a commercial development that is in the northeast corner of Gardner Road and 188th Street. And we entered a memo of understanding with the developer of this shopping center. And the memo of understanding was really sort of a high-level document. It outlined the deal points in broad terms, and now that the developer is close to completing those improvements, I thought it was best to convert that memorandum of understanding to a full-blown development agreement. It's still fairly simple. It's still largely the same deal points, but there's some more administration in there and some finer points on how the community improvement district costs are certified to the city and how the reimbursement is supposed to be paid to the developer that I thought was worth clarifying. So this ordinance approves the form of that development agreement. The other thing that this ordinance accomplishes is it delays the start of collection for the CID sales tax by 12 months. There was an option that the developer had in the MOU originally to request a delay for 12 months. And we think in this case, based on the progress that's been made and everything else that's transpired over the last 12 months, that it would be fair to extend that start date. It doesn't extend the term of the CID. It was originally a 12-year term. It's still a 12-year term. It just starts a year from now when there should be more retailers there at that location.
Okay. Thank you, Tyler. Any public comment on new business item number 3? Seeing none, any questions for Tyler or Matt?
Yeah, just a clarification question, Tyler, and thank you for being here tonight. Although Matt does a fine job when he's working, when he's at the podium. I apologize, Matt, I shouldn't do that in public. Scold in private, praise in public.
I think he does a great job whether he's working
Absolutely,
or at the podium.
here. So just to get back on point, sorry I digress. So the 12-month extension, which is in the MOU, is that just their way of waiting on that revenue? What's triggering that for them?
It is.
Okay.
It is there.
So the growth is a better word to say than revenue.
Yeah, and really, we gave them that option because we didn't know how far things would be at this point.
Sure, the crystal ball doesn't work all the time.
Right, and I think it's fair to say that based on the progress that they've made, it makes sense to delay it for 12 months, and really that's to their benefit, of course, so they have that 12-year window once things are up and running, so there actually are sales taxes to collect.
So this time next year, it would trigger?
Correct,
Okay.
July 1st of 2022.
Okay. And a lot of that has to do with COVID. There was a serious slowdown in commercial leasing.
You don't say.
Yeah, I'll tell you. You're absolutely right. So we're giving them that.
Yes.
Back.
I just wanted to clarify, I'm good.
Yep, okay, thanks. Anyone else? All right, I'll entertain a motion on ordinance number 2700.
Sorry, sir, so moved.
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Deaton, that we adopt ordinance number 2700, an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a development agreement in connection with the Plaza South Community Improvement District in the city of Gardner, Kansas, and amending ordinance number 2634 of the city. City Clerk.
Councilmember Gregorczyk,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Ordinance 2700 passes. Okay, new business item number 4. Consider adopting a resolution authorizing the construction of certain sewerage system improvements and authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds to pay the cost of such improvements.
This is a follow-up item to an item that you approved earlier. And one thing I want to point out is the total estimated project cost is around $400,000. That includes financing costs, but also includes about $50,000 to $60,000 for installation costs. So we're asking for you to authorize issuance of debt for this to capture the entire project cost.
And for the record, for clarification, what are these specific? This is the one. This is the UV system.
Yes.
Sorry, my apologies. That's already been approved. All right. Any public comment on this? Looks like a housekeeping item. Resolution 2082. Seeing none. Any questions? All right. Let's get a motion on resolution 2082.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Baldwin, that we adopt resolution number 2082, a resolution authorizing the construction of certain sewage system improvements and authorizing general obligation bonds to be issued in an amount not to exceed $400,000 to pay the cost of such improvements, all pursuant to KSA 12-617 and 12-618. City Clerk.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton?
Yes.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Councilmember Graversick?
Yes.
Resolution number 2082 passes. You know, you don't have to whisper anymore, Mark. You kind of overcompensated. All right. New business item number 5. Consider adopting a charter ordinance amending charter ordinance number 27, establishing the term of office and swearing in of members of the city's governing body. Stand-in for Ryan Denk here. Yes, city attorney.
Hey guys, Spencer Lau here for Ryan
Spencer.
Dank. I won't belabor this one too much. You all have kind of dealt with a similar thing here a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago. So back in 2019, Senate Bill 105 in Kansas gave some new guidance on swearing in terms. Since you've all been sworn in before, you kind of know what that's talking about. We adopted a new resolution, which was the way that Senate Bill 105 wanted it to be done. It was 2044, did that in November of 19. As we got into it, we realized there's a charter ordinance that also talks about swearing in, and that was not the same as the resolution, which is generally a bad thing to have. So we're here to fix that. So this new charter ordinance has 2 changes from the previous one. Old one was 27, we're up to 29 now. I guess 3 changes. So first, just housekeeping. The previous charter ordinance referred to specific dates in 2017, 18, and 19. The new one is just silent on dates. Makes sense going forward. Second one is changing the swearing-in date from the second Monday in January to the first meeting in December to mirror the resolution. And then the last one, which I think council's talked about before, is that vacancies are going to be, when they're filled, that person's going to step in until the remainder of that term. So those are the 3 changes to the charter ordinance. They're in line with our resolution and in line with what state law requires us to do. So if there's any questions, let me know.
Let's open that up for public comment. I don't expect any, but let's open it up for new business item number 5. All right, questions for Spencer or? I assume we had staff look at this as well. So, yes.
I just have a point. I have no issue with what's before us, and I spoke to Jim about this. I understand that the charter ordinance only addresses, the term and the swearing in of members, but I just want to make sure that the ceremonial part, and I'm really projecting this on the future, that the ceremonial part be something of importance to staff for those that got elected. I know when Mark and I and the mayor won our elections, there was quite a wonderful festivity of pictures and swearing in and cake and all that good stuff, and it was family oriented, and I appreciated that. And I'm not speaking for the other 2, but I'm sure they would agree. So I wanted to just make sure that ceremony portion is there, because I didn't quite see that at the last election. So I just want to make sure that.
I don't know. I feel like we had it.
Did we?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
took pictures.
Danica's done a really good job
I was
with
like,
the
I
last.
think we had it.
Well, I applaud her, but I just want to make sure that the change isn't going to affect the local ceremonial piece of it.
This has not been. Yeah, we've never contemplated a change.
Not that you have, sir. I just want to make sure that it's not.
Okay.
Depends on how much it costs.
Well, you weren't complaining when they were serving
Can
you
we
cake
remotely,
4 years ago.
like, you know?
I hired my own cameraman, I might add.
Okay, any other questions?
No, thank you.
All right, I will entertain a motion on charter ordinance number 29. I believe because it's a charter ordinance, all members of the governing body are required to vote on this.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Deaton, that we adopt charter ordinance number 29, a charter ordinance amending charter ordinance number 27, establishing the term of office and swearing in of members from the governing body of Gardner, Kansas. City Clerk.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Mayor Shute.
Yes, and yes to cake. Charter ordinance number 29 passes. All right, number 6. We're almost to the end of this long agenda. All right, new business item number 6. Consider adopting an ordinance amending Chapter 2.405.040 of the Municipal Code of the City entitled Governing Body Rules of Procedure, and I think this also might be a housekeeping item. City Clerk Sharon Rose.
Yes, this is a housekeeping item in relation to the charter ordinance that you've just passed. The governing body rules of procedure was first adopted on March 18th of 2013. It has gone through a few revisions that have been summarized in the council packet, and the adoption of this ordinance will just incorporate those changes to the governing body rules of procedure that were just approved in charter ordinance 29, namely the swearing in of elected officials on the first Monday in the first December meeting following the certification of the election, and also the that vacancies will fulfill the term of office.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon. Any public comments? New business item number 6. Seeing none. Any questions for Sharon or staff?
This is one of those cases that you knew I was going here.
Redundancy.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
I would like it not to have any of the text there and just reference the charter ordinance. Just as we have with land development code and other places, I detest having something listed the same way in two places. And invariably one of them gets out of whack at some point. So I either don't include it or reference just the charter ordinance would be my preference.
Any other comments?
Is the level of detail just to be statutorily compliant with the state, or is it self-inflicted to Mark's point?
Well, governing body rules and procedures have to be self-inflicted because those are just ours.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. We didn't have a governing body rules of procedure before 2013.
Thank God we do.
All right. Any other questions, comments? I know how you're going to vote.
Other people want to change it.
Is there any will to change the?
I'm not opposed to it. I mean, if he wants to make a motion, I'm not gonna.
Well, I mean, if you wish to make some edits. So right now, if you look at the edits, it states here on the filling vacancies in the newly elected members. At the first December City Council meeting following the certification of the election held in November of each year. My question is this: why are we even having this in the governing body rules of procedure? The governing body rules of procedure don't even have anything to do with election terms or with swearing in, does it?
Strike it.
I'm just asking.
It's a fair point.
We can strike that section.
Because I don't see how that
Edit and everything else. Just strike it.
not everything else. There's
No, I
actually
mean
some
that,
good things in governing body rules of
Well,
procedure.
yeah,
I just
there
don't know
are.
if citing that portion as part of the governing body rules of procedure doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yes, you can strike it if you want to. What we previously did is it was just previously edited from a previous version. If you remember, we greatly condensed governing body rules of procedure a couple of years ago. So I think this would just be farther condensing of that.
That just makes a lot of sense because I am sensitive to what Mark is saying about removing extraneous or duplicative information that's in multiple ordinances. But I don't understand. Yeah, I mean, because I know what the governing body rules of procedure is meant for, and that is to govern the proceedings at the dais vis-a-vis, our own relationships with the public, and things like that, but not necessarily for terms of office. Does that make any sense to you?
Well, do we have a legal opinion on that?
That's why I'm asking.
Well, Spencer just pointed out that there is duplicate language in the governing body rules of procedure, and it references the charter ordinance that it is referring to.
Yeah, I mean, most of these sections, I mean, at least in chapter 2, as I'm looking at them, refer back to a charter ordinance where they're derived from.
Okay.
So the point might be taken that if you want to take out duplicative items, it might be a slightly larger housekeeping task.
That's what I'm kind of thinking.
So we might have
might
Gardner
make
Disposal
sense.
Inc. be involved with the,
Oh.
the large takeout.
So
But
should
there might
we
be
take-
some more pieces. To
We
take
approved an unlimited check on that, so.
Yeah, a blank check. No.
So I think germane is a key word tonight.
Yes. It is.
So should we table this and get a finer tooth comb out and go through it and have maybe a little bit of legal not oversight, but just look-see and then bring it back? Or is there a timeline associated with this housekeeping?
We're inconsistent.
I understand.
So we have that. fixed.
Let's not make a second mistake.
It is inconsistent, but don't you have 60 days before the charter ordinance becomes effective anyway?
Okay.
I would say let's table and see what we can pull out that's not really germane to the rules of procedure of the governing body, because that stuff doesn't seem to be germane to me.
We can do that.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to table.
A point of order, and then
Yes.
just look at duplicity.
Oh, of course, that's
Okay.
the whole point of this. Yeah.
So moved.
Yeah.
Second.
All right, motion Gregorczyk, second Deaton, that we table consideration of ordinance changes to the governing body rules of procedure to the next regular council meeting scheduled for May 8th, is it? Is that correct? May 3rd, I'm sorry, May 3rd. Yeah, sorry. All right, May 3rd. All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, any abstentions? New business item number 6 is tabled to the next council meeting. All right, that's the end of regular business. Almost 2 hours. I expected it to take longer. All right, council updates. Does council have anything? Does staff have anything for council? I will start with our deputy city administrator.
Just really quick, I wanted to let the governing body know that we held our first Parks Master Plan Task Force meeting this past week. We have created a survey, which is with the task force right now for their feedback, and then it will be going out to the public within the next couple weeks.
All right, super. Thank you. Nice. That's quick. I like that.
And sir, if I might add, it's a kudo, but Amy, we're self-performing this, correct?
That is correct.
So we're saving, I don't know,
A lot of money.
$40,000?
A lot of money.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
I believe it was in the CIP a few years ago for 100,000, wasn't it, Jason? Correct.
Wonderful, great. It's called return on investment. Finance director Matt Wolf.
Nothing for tonight.
Okay, yeah. He didn't want to say anymore. All right, city clerk.
Nothing for me.
Are we potentially having an opening, I believe, on one of our committees? Is that correct, David?
Yeah, we have been notified that one of our EDAC committee members may be moving. It is not definitive at this point, but I've been coordinating with the city clerk on that, so that may come forward to you, Mr. Mayor.
So next council meeting, we'll be asking for members of the interview team for that particular interview process. All right. Chief Belcher, anything in public safety?
Yeah, just real quick, follow up to the tornado siren that was discussed. I believe it was last council meeting. We've got a site located. We've been working with Gonza's staff. It's going to be a little bit to the south of where it currently is, in an area where it doesn't look like we're going to have any issues. So I know Gonza's people have been working with us on that. We should have that resolution very quickly.
That's great. Thank you very much. Speaking of Gons, hello, Utilities Director.
Fine, nothing, sir.
Nothing for me today. Okay. Jason Bruce.
Thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned at the start of the meeting with the proclamation, birthday Arbor Day this weekend, Wynwood Park, Greenway cleanup, so come on out and help. Also, we should have some information in the Friday Minute Memo about the Aquatic Center operations and what that is potentially going to look like. So you'll see some this Friday.
Great. And based on our conversations last week, it looks like we're pretty good on staffing, although we would encourage, I'm assuming, people who would like to maybe come out and do some summer employment.
Yes, we are doing pretty good with lifeguards. I will say we are very short-staffed with facility supervisors and our parks for our tournaments and leagues for soccer and baseball. So anybody 18 and older can apply online and go through the process.
Yep. Hear that, students? 18 or older, please apply. We like to keep those facilities operational, especially in the busy summer months. Okay. David Nopick.
We do have a planning commission meeting next Monday night, 7 o'clock. We do have an item on there. It's another infill type item. It's with the Willow Chase development and finishing out that development. So we do anticipate that. 2 new members coming on board with planning commission, obviously by tonight's action that you all made. I'll be coordinating with the city clerk on getting them notified and hopefully getting them at the meeting Monday.
All right. Wonderful, wonderful. Kellen Headley, Public Works.
Nothing tonight.
Nothing tonight. Great. City Attorney.
You guys have already made me talk more than I usually do, so I think I'll
Yeah, I know.
get my
I
mouth
know.
here.
We also give you some homework. It's
Yeah.
all right. And City Administrator, I did not forget you tonight.
Yeah, thank you. So you probably noticed that the police station is gone.
Yes.
They're very close to finishing the grade, tearing up the parking lot and stuff, so we will be coming to the council at the next meeting with a recommendation on how to process the sale of that. So that'll be next meeting.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Does council have anything for staff? I will start with Councilwoman Deaton.
Not tonight.
Not tonight. Okay. Councilwoman Roberts.
Well, I was interested to know when we're gonna have the Public Works Committee, because I think that's the one that I'm a representative of. And I've been in office since December of 2019, and we've yet to have a meeting.
That was because of short staffing. I believe we have all members of the committee now seated, so we can have that meeting. Kellen would actually help to coordinate that. And
I also couldn't even find it on the website, which Sharon said it had been turned off on the website also.
When the Public Works Committee and the ADA Committee joined forces,
Right.
Public Works took that page down so they could make those changes, and then of course at that time, they didn't know what it looked like, they didn't have fully staffed committees, so it's just been hiding in the background, it's under construction.
all right, will we have that up soon?
So we have a process meeting tomorrow, and that's one of the topics
Okay.
of discussion is that.
Good. Yeah, but I would anticipate that we would have a meeting very soon. We have to notify the members of the committee that we will be meeting, and they have to choose their chair and vice chair and set up the format of the meetings. So that'll come up pretty soon. I'm assuming probably the first part of May. Is that right, Kellen? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Yeah, we can shoot for probably 2nd to 3rd week of May. I will be out of pocket to retire officially from the Navy the 1st week of May, so I'll be back after that.
All right, excellent. Yeah, we can start working on getting that meeting scheduled. There's a big need in that area for particularly accessibility and ADA. So absolutely, we'll get cracking on that.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
No problem. Councilmember Gorsuch.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple of items. The first one I deliver with just a heavy heart. We all know about the 175th and Four Corners accident, and I believe that's where it's going to lie, as an accident. And that family and those involved are in my prayers. But I emailed the county commissioner, because that is obviously county intersection. I copied the Edgerton mayor. I copied, of course, the Gardner mayor, our city administrator, to the county commissioner, Shirley Allen Brand. And she responded, I'd say about 30 or 40 minutes later. And I don't have details for the follow-up, but I know she's working with some of our stakeholders, both at the county and the two cities at that level. I also appreciated Mayor Schutt's response. I appreciate that. As a fire board member, I also spoke to Chief Kirk. He brought it up also with a heavy heart on the last fire board meeting. But nonetheless, I spoke with Chief Kirk, and he supports us 100% and hopes that the stakeholders can, rally around this, and hopefully find something that will bring some safety to that intersection. And I think that while we're doing that, we need to look at the intersections that intersect with Old 56, especially in the rolling hills going towards Edgerton. So hopefully it doesn't happen again. But again, it was an accident. The second item I have, I appreciated the follow-up from Matt on the transient guest tax. It's my understanding that the Little Hotel has been receiving state funding month to month all this time, because I found it odd that those numbers were so robust. But nonetheless, it looks like we do have a surplus, and I don't want to cuss and discuss it now. I know I have spoken to Dr. or Councilman Winters, but I would like to look at how we can earmark some of that for advertising within the economic development boundaries of the transient guest tax. If we could maybe get that on the agenda in the next couple of meetings, that would be great, and understand what the climate of council is, and how we can, again, stay within those parameters, and utilize that, whether it be the air show that's coming up on Independence Day, whether it's promoting our fireworks, whether it's promoting other city-centric activities through print, social media, banners, advertising in general. Thank you. So again, I just wanted to put that on the table, and would hope to see that in maybe the next meeting or two, because I would only suggest that the revenues from the transient guest tax is going to grow. I think they will then spike and level back off to your normal transient guest tax dollars and cents once everybody gets the travel bug out of them and gets back to the normal, not the new normal, but the normal, moving about freely. So I'd really like to see that.
Yeah, my plan is to convene the committee that advises the council, because we have had opportunities come up for radio advertising on the Royals Radio Network and other things that that we can utilize those dollars and reach the most number of people. So,
And you're the chair of that committee?
well, I'm not sure how that's.
Well, you're on
whether
the
I'm
committee.
Chair, but yes, I'm the
Yeah.
one that'll.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great leverage and use of that body of people and the input, and I think we could segue that into utilizing that, because at the end of the day, I mean, we truly need to use it to enhance our economic development. And I think that we need to have a good game plan to do that as we rebound out of this situation. That's all I had, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, Council Vice President Baldwin, got anything for us?
I will piggyback what Councilman Gorsuch said about talking with the county commissioner. Shirley informed me that she already has staff working into that, so they're actively doing something with it. So just adding on. And then if you go back to one of my pet projects that I brought up a couple years ago, I wanted to track every project we do on the website, like a timeline, could be something else. But the idea was you could condense it and see this month, this year, whatever, what did we approve, what did we start, what did we finish? And then each of those you could expand out. And what I would like to do, and the reason I'm bringing this up again now, is in that process of where it explodes out and gives you more detail. I think that's where all the problems we have with development stuff, you could have where, hey, this project, every development we have is listed. And now you click on that and you can see Aspen Creek, here's what's been submitted to the city. Heck, here's a picture of those yellow signs out there. Here's a date. The link right there to the Planning Commission video, etc. It's on one page right there. And then also, you could see, you wouldn't have to list names, but you could even say, here are the addresses that were contacted, right, for the 1,000-foot boundary and those type of things. So all those details are, one, logged for posterity, but also nobody would not be able to find the information readily. They wouldn't even have to ask staff. It's right there. It does take time and energy to update and go forward with that. And I know that the website doesn't have that capability at this moment, somebody to maintain all that. But I would like to revisit doing that. And then on, just like tabling the trash, somebody could come up and click trash pickup. And what would they say? I don't know. I'm not watching that video. No. Okay, they said no. Okay, they said yes.
Well, to that point, I mean, people were seeing the article that was being written and that said it was being tabled, and they took that to mean that it was being canceled. That's just because people don't understand tabling versus canceling. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Mark. It comes back to us being able to provide authoritative information to the public. So,
And part of the money we spent from the CARES Act went towards a new mobile app and a migration to a new website. So now that those are completed, now we can look at, and one of the icons that we have is specifically for projects so that we can use that as a pointer system to the information you're talking about. So that'll be on the horizon.
The other thing that I'll just briefly add to that comment is our administrative assistant, along with the GIS analyst and several of the people who are working with Central Square closely here, are working on an initiative to try to create that similar dashboard that you're talking about that would be GIS based, so it would be visual as well. It's going to take a little bit because we're trying to figure out how the different software packages can and cannot communicate with each other. So we're in that process right now of evaluating something like what you're talking about. Well, hopefully it'll be visually based as well as information based. So when you click on the dot or you click on the location, it pops all that information up, and it would link to Ames and a whole lot of other information.
perfect. I think we've got a guy here though who.
Yeah, if you need
might
somebody
be-
to
might
talk about
wanna-
that migration piece, I'll
Yeah,
jump in.
because Mark's in the IT business and does this work all the time. So
We might need to get them
Analytics.
involved.
Yeah.
We're learning it very quickly, but we do have about 3 or 4 staff people behind the scenes that we're trying to understand all the software packages and how they work, and will talk friendly or will not talk friendly to each other.
And we're always looking for free consultations.
absolutely.
I prefer open-ended contracts.
Mark, I think that's an excellent idea that you just brought up. Just
Yeah,
in general,
I
getting
agree.
more information out there for the people easily to get to is excellent.
Absolutely.
And I use that at work, and you're exactly right. I can go to a project, whether it be an RFI or RFP, or we want it, and I mean just,
Right.
I mean like a deck of cards, you know.
And I was kind of kidding, but not really. I mean, Mark, I know that you like working with those initiatives of being able to aggregate data and get it in the right place to be easily accessible. I think that they wouldn't mind your input
I
on
mean,
this.
I went to the training for the new electric and water meters. I could probably handle something with this.
Yeah.
Keep it in mind.
Okay.
Be wary of what you ask for.
He'll be the most demanding guy on the team, I'll tell you. All right, Council President.
Yes, I believe this is probably from Matt, and I apologize, I don't want to blindside you with this. I used to try and give you a heads up. But I was thinking about, I read an article in the local newspaper about cell phones and, our rates and things. Do we do any kind of auditing on that? I know there's at least 1 or 2 companies in town, in Gardner, that will do audits on just your whole contract and look for ways to save money, look for ways to, get
I
the
know.
best deal.
We've been reached out to by a couple companies in the past on doing a telecommunications audit. To my knowledge, the city of Gardner's never done one, at least in the last few years that I've been here. I mean, we could take a look at that. I went through one at City of Manhattan before. The one thing I would caution is you need to be careful because it does take a lot of staff time. Often they say it doesn't, but it really does.
It does, yeah.
But there could be savings.
Just that, yeah.
Okay,
All right.
anything else?
Nope, that's it, thank you.
All right, I coach soccer in town, as most people know. And I'm coaching 5th and 6th graders right now, but little Callie Dilks, who died in the collision that unfortunately unfortunate accident on West 175th Street actually was a soccer nut, and I don't know if you all saw the postings that happened on CFG where they put the purple ribbons on the goals over on Field 6. That's where the 3rd and 4th graders tend to play. And I saw a lot of coaches, a lot of teams wearing purple to support her because that was her favorite color. She was really vivacious, really fun-loving, just a sweet girl. Whole family's a really good family, and obviously, if you know anything about the family, father is a first responder. He's a state trooper. Is that correct? There was a beautiful ceremony that happened yesterday at dusk to commemorate the life of the little girl that was taken way too soon. I really am overwhelmed by the spirit of community that materializes here in times such as that. And it shows a lot about who we are as a town, as a city. We're able to rally around people who are hurting or in a lot of pain. I saw a lot of the Santa Fe tow trucks out there, and Marvin's Tow was out there, and a lot of emergency first responders and fire and police that came out to support that grieving family. And a lot of them live right here in Gardner. A lot of them were from other jurisdictions, but they live here in the town, and they hang out with the kids in the parks and the fields, and you know, that's really what a lot of this is all about. It's really sad she was taken from us so quickly and so suddenly. We're going to work with the county to make sure that it never happens again. But in the meantime, I want to commemorate all those who came out, and our thoughts and prayers obviously are with the family. And this is what being Gardner Strong is all about. And I just wanted to note that for the record. So thank you. With that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Deaton, second, Baldwin, that we adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? We stand adjourned.